Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week I Review. You can call me Meta Man, because today I am capping off the anniversary celebration that has been this past week with the most self-indulgent thing I can think of, a review of the Week I Review itself. Now, this is not the first time I've reviewed my own work on this channel. Many months ago, I did a video about my short film reel, but this is a little bit different. Instead of talking about it from the perspective of its creator, something I've done more than enough of this week, I think, I'm attempting here to view what I made through the eyes of someone who had just happenstanced upon it and wonder aloud whether I would have been able to convince myself that I was worth my own time. From here on out, I will refer to myself, today's reviewer, in the first person, and the host of the Week I Review more broadly as Alec. So, one thing that will always be in Alec's favor is that he and I agree on literally everything, and he only talks about things that I have experience with. This may seem like a somewhat unfair advantage, but there are plenty of people who I agree with who I have absolutely no interest in watching on YouTube, so that doesn't actually mean as much as you might think. And in any case, I don't agree with this person and have never watched most of the movies he's talking about isn't a particularly interesting take, so we can just leave all that aside. When you watch every single video on a YouTube channel, as I have with this one, you pick up on patterns and you start to develop specific frustrations with the way that things are done. In this case, eventually you reach the point where you no longer even need to be watching the video to know what Alec's face is doing at any given moment. And since his face is the entire video, you don't really even need to watch it at all. This is the most common comment or complaint, and it is indeed common. People complain all the time about his face, or even more specifically, his mouth, telling him he moves too much or emotes too much. People seem to think that he is mugging for the camera or acting excessively performative, but having met him, he's not really. That's just his face, which is unfortunate for him, I guess. Because of that, he said right from the outset in his first video, if you don't like my face, you're going to hate this channel. And he has committed to making those people genuinely furious every week since. My problem is not his face per se, but the fact that it seems kind of lazy. There are three types of video essays, I think. Ones where you never see the creator's face and just hear their voice over related media. Ones where you see their face sometimes and then it cuts away to related media. And ones where you only ever see their face and they don't really show any related media at all. The other such channels that I watch pretty much all fall into the first or second categories, while Alex sits somewhat strangely between the latter two and closer to the third, which I would say puts him on the same level as your average reaction channel, and maybe even a rung below. At least those give you something else to look at, even if it's another person's hashtag content that is probably not being fair used at all. Like a reaction channel, Alec doesn't cut away from his own face even when he is showing media, despite the fact that he is not reacting to it in real time, and so there is no reason to do it that way. The review of The Night Comes for Us includes clips from 5 different movies, presumably to illustrate his point, but instead of full screening the footage like everyone else, he takes some awesome action footage and puts it in a little box over his shoulder that, if you're watching on a phone, you just lose the point. And you're like, why does he think it's important that we see him in those moments? It is genuinely strange, you know? And I don't mean like everyone else pejoratively here. There is a reason that people do that. It's more interesting to look at. It's helpful. But usually the people who fall into this third category put a lot less effort into the production itself, which is why the comparison isn't actually quite fair. Heck, even the people in the second category often just sit in rooms that, sure, might have some stuff on the walls or whatever, but it's not composed in any really nice way. You won't be shocked to learn that I'm big on symmetry, and I think that he does it generally well, if sometimes imperfectly. It looks intentional, especially now that he often uses colored lighting on his face or the back wall to liven up the image. And intentionality is important to me. It says a lot about how seriously a person takes their work. Speaking of intentionality, I think the decision to do YouTube videos without jump cuts is interesting, if not necessarily brave, as some people have called it. In almost every case, a jump cut in a video is about hiding a mistake, either an overlong pause or a linguistic slip-up or an entire section that just didn't work for pacing or other reasons. And I am glad most folks use jump cuts because, oh gosh, I wouldn't want to listen to them unedited. But it's still a cheat. And I think Alec's commitment to pacing a video during production instead of fixing it in post is admirable. Relatedly, I am glad he pre-writes these things. Have you seen the videos where he's working without a script? Sure, extemporaneous eloquence is hard, but good golly, dude, stay on topic. Which actually gets to my personal pet peeve about the channel. Despite the fact that his videos are pre-written, his writing style is not necessarily conducive to video. Alec has called this anecdotal pseudo-analysis, which is exactly the kind of obnoxious nonsense you would expect from him, where a real critic is likely to compare the thing they're discussing to its broader artistic canon. He tends to discuss his own life or other things in ways that are not necessarily clearly related. I would say that most of the time he eventually brings it around to make a point about the subject, but sometimes it's really just an unrelated thought that he had and felt like sharing. But the real problem is that in a video context, it is harder to keep the thread. An aside to a second camera might be the video equivalent of a mid-sentence parenthetical, but in writing, you can easily see before and after that and just skip the part in the center to make sure you understand the context. You might have to read it twice, but you're already actively reading, so that doesn't change the experience that you're having. Plus, you can easily skim and skip around while ensuring that you don't miss anything critical. That is not possible with video. If you lose track in the middle of a tangent, you have to pause and try to figure out where you are. You have to scrub around or just accept that you don't entirely know what he's talking about anymore. And I've never had much luck scrubbing around like that. And it's annoying. Because even if the tangents are sometimes fun or interesting, by and large, they replace insight with inanity and just pad the runtime. The underlying issue is that Alec clearly has a sincere belief that he is qualified to speak with authority about basically anything. He thinks he knows something about everything, and so why shouldn't he go and tangent about whatever old topic comes to mind? Why not turn a review about a comedy show into a discussion about how to diagnose a psychopath? And that one was really pathetic, because he had to mea culpa mid-video because he got some of the facts wrong, which also forced him to acknowledge that it was all a little much. I cringed real hard at that. Still, this does bring up an interesting question about the value of YouTube as a platform. One of its defining features, I think, is the ability for content creators to add personal asides to their creative content without the man telling them they can't. What Alec makes for the internet is purely his, with him doing every single aspect of the production on basically every video. No one but himself can tell him what or what not to do. But things have changed a lot in the past few years, as YouTube moves away from creators as such and towards celebrities and other high-profile, specifically ad-friendly content. And while there's nothing inherently unfriendly about what Alec is doing, it's definitely not the kind of thing you could ever imagine seeing on the trending page. And that's fine. But it is a bit of an odd attempt by some random guy with a relatively nice camera and an industry standard editing program to put himself out there, one that doesn't make much sense and has no real place in the world. But even with the changes, YouTube is the closest thing to a home it could have, a point he has already made several times this week, so not one I'm going to belabor. YouTube is not really the great equalizer it once was, but it remains a place that allows for all kinds of narcissistic experimentation. And I think it's important for the internet to have that somewhere, to give people a chance to express themselves in a way that is uniquely theirs and potentially allow an audience to find them. It's the nice vision of what this connected globe could be, and it doesn't always work out that way. But you know what? Of the narcissistic experiments I've seen on YouTube, this one's definitely up there. 7.0 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, that's great. If you didn't, I'm sorry. If you want to see more, please subscribe. If you want to help fund it, as of yesterday, I have a Patreon. This is the last of the 5 video anniversary celebration week. It has been a long week, and I've been thinking about this stuff for literally months. I've been working on these scripts for so long, and I'm glad that they're finally just out and I can't worry about them anymore. But I am going to take next week off. I hope you can forgive me for that. I feel like it's justified. But I hope to see you when I get back.